The absolute worst part about depression is even though you know you're depressed, you're unable to stop yourself from getting worse. Today we're closing out our series, The Silence, talking about the silence of depression. Before COVID-19 hit, the most common mental illness in the U.S. was anxiety disorder, affecting 40 million adults 18 and over. According to Boston University, in the first year of COVID, depression in the U.S. tripled, going from 8.5% to 27.8%. They went on to say that the elevated rate of depression persisted into 2021 and even worsened, and by 2022, the rate of depression in the U.S. had climbed to 32.8%, affecting 1 in every 3 adults. The percentage has gone down, but not by a whole lot. World Health Organization says 1 in 7 teenagers experience a mental disorder. In fact, one article I read posted by Compass Health said 42% of teens experience persistent feelings of sadness and hopelessness. Get this, 22% of teens have seriously considered suicide. One article said that this generation we're living in now has the highest percentage of people who deal with what they call constant low-grade depression. What is that? Well, here's the definition. Sustained yet subtle feelings of hopelessness and sadness. Sustained yet subtle feelings of hopelessness and sadness. One writer says that for the most part, these people that suffer with this low-grade depression were high-functioning people that really couldn't pinpoint what was wrong. It was they just knew something was not right. Here we are about 3 years outside of COVID pandemic, and the U.S. is seeing a pandemic that I believe is far worse than COVID-19. In fact, an article published June 9th of this year said recent data shows that the United States is in a mental health crisis experienced by people of all ages. You know what they contributed the rise to be to? 2 things: the opioid use and social media. And here's the truth. I'm seeing more and more people with this deep seed of a lack of hope, for a better word. I'm seeing more and more of this thinking that things will never change, that this is just the way it's going to be. This deep seed feeling of, I don't know exactly what's wrong. I just know things are not like they should be. I don't want a show of hands, but I wonder how many have ever felt that. Like, it's not that there's anything really wrong. It's just something's not right. You can't pinpoint it, can't put your finger on it, but you know something is not right. The health world professionals, psychologists will give us 3 root causes of depression. And if you're taking notes, you see there's 4. That's because I've added 1 myself. But the first root, they say, cause of depression is biological. Meaning you didn't do anything wrong to cause the depression. It could be you have a chemical imbalance in your body, in your mind. It could be that you suffer from chronic pain and that brings on the depression. It could be a nutritional deficiency. It could be hormonal changes. Because let me tell you, postpartum depression is a very real thing that has been dismissed for a long time. The second root, they say, is relational. meaning maybe it's problems in your marriage. Maybe you're having problems with one of your children, or you felt rejected, or you felt left out. We really saw this play out in COVID-19 in our nursing homes and adult living facilities. Denise's mom was in a nursing home in Sweetwater. And I'm going to tell you, what was worse than COVID-19 was when they isolated them from anybody they loved. And they could not see family members, could not see. That was worse than COVID-19 ever could have been to them. The third essay is circumstantial. Maybe you lost somebody close to you, and it can bring on depression. Maybe you did everything you could think of financially to hold it together, but now you're having to file for bankruptcy, and that can bring it on. It could be, get this, it could be something even we might consider good. Like you've worked your whole life to retire, you finally get to retire, or all your kids are finally out of the house and you're empty nesters, but now you find yourself, what's my purpose now? I found my purpose in my job. I found my purpose raising my kids. Now who am I? And those are the three they list. But I think there's a fourth that we better really understand is a real thing. Spiritual. It's spiritual. It could very well be a spiritual attack. Why? Because you need to understand, nothing matters more to the heart of God than you. And the enemy will do whatever he takes to, if he can't take you out, then to get you so bottled up mentally that you're stuck. Well, listen, I'm a pastor, and you can say things. I've had things said about me, and that's fine. You do all that, it's fine. But you want to know how to really get me? Mess with my kid. It's no longer PK or Pastor Kelly. It's, you touch my kid, I'm going to beat your tail, Kelly. And that's the way God feels about his kid, and the enemy knows that, so he goes after his kids. He goes after his sons and his daughters. And understand, depression does not discriminate. And it looks different for people. Get this, here in the U.S., we're going to talk about the U.S. Over the last 2 decades, there has been a 30% increase in the rate of suicide in the U.S. Let me give you some statistics from last year, 2024. 12.8 million seriously considered suicide in the U.S. 3.7 million came up with a plan. 1.5 million actually attempted suicide. In the U.S., someone takes their life every 12.3 minutes. Worldwide, every 40 seconds. But that U.S. number, that comes up to, it's over 49,300 Americans that died last year by suicide. Suicide is the second leading cause of death among individuals between the ages of 10 to 14 and ages 25 to 34. It is the third leading cause of death for ages between 15 to 24. It is the fourth leading cause of death for ages 35 to 44. And get this, ages 85 and older last year had the highest rate of suicide. While males make up 50% of the population, they account for nearly 80% of all suicides. And what they'll tell you, the reason for that is because when a man decides it's over, they choose a really violent way to do it to make sure there is no backup plan. Undiagnosed or untreated depression is the leading cause of suicide. What is depression like? Well, see, I've got this spotlight blinding me right now. I can't see me, and it follows me everywhere I go. If I move over here to try to get out of it, it's there. If I move over here to try to get out of it. And depression is like that. These lights shining. See, I can hear that you're there. I know that you're there. But depression is blinding me that there are people that actually care around me in my life. And all I want to do is run and get away from it. That's what depression is like. Here's the truth. No one in this room, no one online is above having thoughts of ending it all. No one here is immune to having suicidal thoughts or suicidal tendencies. No one in here is immune to, at some point, finding yourself in such a deep, depressive state where it feels like it's just a dark cloud hanging over you. And you just can't seem to get out of it. Here's the fact. You could be sitting beside someone right now in this church service that has actually considered it over the past week. In fact, several studies have shown that almost every person that has ever lived has had at least one moment where they thought, I should just end it all. Again, depression doesn't discriminate. And I mean, you could turn on the news, you could turn on social media, and you'll see people that chose to end their lives. One guy, one of my favorite singers, a guy by the name of Chris Cornell. Can you bring that picture up for me? In an interview in 1996, Chris Cornell, who's the lead singer of Soundgarden, said this: mild depression? I don't know if there's such a thing as mild depression. Some people, you talk to them and 1 minute it seems mild, and the next minute they're in a hotel room with a rope around their neck. That was in 1996. May 18th, 2017. After performing with his band Soundgarden, Chris goes back to his hotel, calls his wife. His wife senses there is something wrong. When Chris hangs up, she calls Chris's bodyguard and says, get to Chris's room. Something is not right. He goes up there, bangs on the door, no answer. Bangs on the door. He calls down to the hotel, the front desk. They will not let him in because it's not room. No, it's not his room. So he calls Chris's wife back, tells him, she says, break his door down. Something is wrong. The bodyguard breaks down the door and finds Chris dead. Suicide by hanging. 11 years earlier, he said 1 minute they're fine, and the next minute they're in a hotel room with a rope around their neck. What about Robin Williams? One of the funniest guys. And on the outside telling jokes, on the outside cracking everybody up, the life of the party. Yet on August 11th of 2014, ended his own life. It's funny, in an interview he did before that, he made this statement. He said, everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Be kind, always. More recently, the younger people would know this guy, Liam Payne. He was one of the singers in the band One Direction. And he fell to his death, 31 years old, fell to his death from a third-story balcony. And they never really determined whether it was accidental or suicide. But what we do know is he was very vocal about his mental health. In fact, in a 2019 interview, Payne said, there have been a lot of people in trouble with mental health that aren't really getting the help they need. And I think that's a bit of a problem in our industry. It's the same that happens to everyone. You know what the traps are. And if you're lucky enough, like me, to be able to get out of the scenario and back into a sense of normality, then you know it's a bit different. That was 2019. 2021, in an interview, he said this: I was worried. How far is my rock bottom? Where is rock bottom for me? and you would never have seen it. I'm very good at hiding it. No one would ever have seen it. In fact, there is some stuff that I have definitely never spoken about. At the time of his death, Liam had talked about and celebrated 6 months sobriety, which is, they say, most people dealing with depression have an addiction of some sort. 6 months sobriety, but toxicology reports found that Liam had multiple substances in his system and a blood alcohol level of 0.27. Another guy, the lead singer for one of my favorite bands, Chester Bennington, 41 years old, had a history of depression, suicidal thoughts. He later revealed that he had been molested by an older man over several years as a little boy. In one of their songs, Heavy, Chester sings, I'm holding on. Why is everything so heavy? Holding on to so much more than I can carry. I keep dragging around what's bringing me down. If I just let go, I'd be set free. But I'm holding on. This is what Chester said in an interview months before his death. Play that.
I don't know if anybody out there can relate, but like, I have a hard time with life sometimes. Right. Sometimes it's great, but a lot of times for me, it's really hard. And no matter how I'm feeling, like, I always find myself like struggling with certain patterns of behavior. I find myself like stuck in like the same thing that keeps repeating over and over again. And I'm just like, how am I in this? And it's that moment where you're in it, and then you kind of separate yourself from that situation, and you look at it and you see it for what it is, and you're able to then do something about it. Like you've now broken out of that circle, that cycle. I know that for me, when I'm inside myself, when I'm in my own head, it gets this place right here, this skull between my ears. That is a bad neighborhood, and I should not be in there alone. I can't be in there by myself.
What are you talking about?
It's insane.
Crazy,
it's crazy in here. This is a bad place for me to be by myself. And so when I'm in that, like, my whole life gets thrown off. Like, if I'm in there, like, I don't say nice things to myself. Like, there's another Chester in there that's like wants to take me down. And so, and I find that it could be, whether it's substances or whether it's behavior or whether it's like depressive stuff or whatever it is, like, if I'm not like actively like getting out of myself and being with other people, like being a dad, being a husband, being a bandmate, like being a friend, helping someone out, like, if I'm out of myself, I'm great. If I'm inside all the time, I'm horrible. I'm a mess. And so for me, it's like, that was kind of where I don't like my mind right now, stacking up problems that are so unnecessary, you know?
That was in an interview in February of 2017. July 20th, 2017. Chester ended his life in the same fashion that his good friend Chris Cornell had 2 months earlier on what would have been Chris's 53rd birthday. This place here, he says, is a dangerous neighborhood. There's a Chester in there that wants to end it. And we could go down the line. We've seen people over the years, Kate Spade, Avicii, Stephen Boss Twitch, which everybody thought he was great, Anthony Bourdain, Naomi Judd. Just to name a few, and here's my point. All of these individuals were gifted, talented, loved, adored by fans, and on the outside it seemed like everything was perfect. But depression does not discriminate. And so many of you are thinking right now of someone that you know that either ended their life in that fashion or came very close to it. Or maybe it's even you. And maybe you say, well, PK, I'm a follower of Jesus. I love Jesus. I love God. I come to church. I'm there every Sunday. I worship. Why? You ever got the thought that because it doesn't come from God or the Bible that life is going to be easy. And here's the thing. The church, though, in general, in fact, I had a young lady that I know grew up that was in church. After the service, she came to me and said, Kelly, thank you for saying something that I wish I'd heard 20 years ago. Why? Because the church has done a terrible job addressing mental health and what it's about. In fact, when I was growing up, you didn't dare talk about having those thoughts. I mean, it wasn't you just kept those things down. You didn't admit it. Because if you're a Christian, you should have the mind of Christ. And Christians don't battle mental health. Christians don't battle depression. And if you're a Christian, you're telling me you do, you better check your relationship with Jesus. That was the thinking I grew up with. And so nobody ever talked about it. Instead, we just push it all down, put on our mask, and come to church and act like everything's good. I'll never forget when the first person, I must have been 12, 13 years old, the first person I knew took their own life. It was a pastor that we had been friends with for a very long time. In fact, our family had done many revivals at his church. And I remember getting the news that one morning he got up, made his coffee, walked over to his church office, took the gun out of his desk and took his life. You'd have never known this man dealt with that kind of depression. Why? Because he was taught, if you're a Christian, and especially if you're a pastor, don't admit you're struggling. Again, I don't know where we get this idea. When you read the Bible and you see some of the heroes of our faith, these guys were jacked up. I mean, when you read about some of them, they were very, one of the things I love about the Bible is their transparency with where they were emotionally, mentally. I mean, you look at guys like Elijah. 1 minute, Elijah is challenging a whole nation. And the next minute, he's under a tree wanting to die. You look at Job. Job didn't take his own life, but what he did was pray that God would do it for him. What about guys like David? I mean, David, the only man that I know of that God referred to as a man after my own heart. Read some of his Psalms. Read some of them. And in fact, Psalms 31, 9, 10, David says this, I've cried my eyes out. I feel hollow inside. My life leaks away. Groan by groan, my years fade out in sighs. Sounds like some depression going on. This is what the sons of Korah wrote in Psalms. Psalms 42, 5. Why are you in despair, O my soul? Why have you become so disturbed within me? The New Living Translation says, why am I discouraged and why is my heart so sad? Good News Translation says, why am I so sad? Why am I so troubled? But I think the Passion paraphrases this perfectly. Why are you so depressed? He's talking to himself. And why are you sinking in despair? Why are you so depressed? Why are you so sad? Anybody ever been there? You're sad. Man, you're just in this place and you don't even know why you're there. I would say if I were to asking each individual person here or online and you were honest, the answer would be, yeah, PK, I've been there. Some of you might even say, I'm there right now. I'm just sad and I don't even know why. So here's the thing. I don't want to be silent and pretend that there aren't people here or people watching that aren't battling depression or thinking about taking their life. What I want us to do is start a conversation that should have been started years ago in the church. Are you with me? And because, see, if I were to ask, hey, what is a suicide? Give me a definition of suicide. Someone will say, well, that's when someone takes their life. But I came across, I think, what is the best definition of suicide, and it is in your notes. Suicide is a permanent and irreversible attempt to solve a temporary problem. A permanent and irreversible attempt to solve a temporary problem. So let me tell you, today, if you're battling or have battled depression, you're not going to hear a message that says, do better, get over it. Instead, I want to talk to you from my brokenness. I've been very transparent about bouts that I've had in my past with depression. I would love to say that I never have those days anymore, but I've learned in the process of how to deal with them when they come along. So I'm not talking, you're not going to hear a message from somebody that doesn't know what they're talking about. Like, it's not like you're listening to a 400-pound preacher telling you you ought to get healthy. You know what I'm saying? Some of that went over your head. But that's another thing we'll talk about later. No, this is someone who's battled it, who's dealt with it. And so I want to tell you, for those that are here, you're wrestling with it. And I'm going to tell you, I look at everybody's faces. I see you're here. You're here. Can I tell you one of the best ways to get through depression? Transparency. Be real about it. Open up. And I want to tell you something. There is hope. I don't care how dark it may seem. I don't care if it seems like, man, everything is lost. There is hope. And some of those that minister will know how the enemy works, but knowing that I was going to speak on this subject today over the past couple of weeks, man, they've been tough. My wife will tell you. I've been fatigued more than usual. I've had to make myself do anything. I've had thoughts, these thoughts in my head. I've had these uneasy feeling. And then to the point where I'm like, God, how am I going to talk about this when I wrestle with it? But I've been here before. I know how the enemy works. So I began rehearsing over my mind. You know what? God, you are good. You know what, God? I know you don't want me here. I know you don't want me to struggle with this, battle with this forever. I know you have a future for me. And instead of allowing the negative thoughts to consume me, I went on the offense. Are you hearing me? Why? Because listen, there is depression and there is mental illness. And if that's the case of what's going on with you, get help. Don't do it alone. But you also need to be aware you have a very real enemy that wants nothing more than to take you out. I'm going to say something that may be controversial and I may get pushback. I believe there is a spirit of death. Well, Kelly, is that in the Bible? Well, I don't know if you remember the story told in Mark 9 where this father brings his son to Jesus to have this spirit cast out. And look what the father tells Jesus in Mark 9, 21, 22. Jesus asked the boy's father, how long has he been like this? The father replied, from childhood. Look, it has often thrown him into fire or water to do what? What was the spirit trying to do to the boy? Kill him. The spirit was trying to use the boy to kill himself. So yes, I believe in things like chemical imbalances. I believe there's mental illness. And I believe all those things. But I also believe we need to be aware there is a spiritual battle going on. I mean, Jesus tells us what the enemy wants to do with us. John 10:10, first of it, the thief comes only to steal, to kill, and destroy. Those are the words of Jesus. I think if Jesus gives us that warning, we better take heed. I mean, if Jesus said, hey guys, let me tell you, here's what the enemy wants to do. He wants to steal from you, steal your sanity, and then he wants to kill you. And then in the process of doing that, he's going to destroy a lot of other things around you. And the thing is, if he can't kill you, he at least wants to get you to a place where you're paralyzed. Look what Jesus said about our enemy in John 8:44. He was a murderer from the beginning. He has always hated the truth because there is no truth in him. When he lies, it is consistent with his character, for he is a liar and the father of lies. He was a murderer from the beginning, and he does nothing but lie. I want to give you 3 lies that the enemy will tell you if you're walking through depression or to just try to get you there. The first lie I believe he tells you is this: things will never change. He'll whisper it in your ear. This is the way it's always going to be. Nothing will ever change. This is it. This is it for you. Let's look at Isaiah 43:18-19. Forget about what's happened. Don't keep going over old history. But be alert, be present. I am about to do something brand new. It's bursting out. Don't you see it? I am making a road through the desert, rivers in the Badlands. In other words, stop rehearsing the past. Stop thinking that it's always going to be this way. Stop thinking that things are never going to change. Open your eyes to what God is trying to do. But the thing is, when you're depressed, it's hard to see past the depression. And today, God sent you here for me to tell you he is about to do something brand new in you. Look at 2 Corinthians 4:16-17. We're not giving up. How could we? Even though on the outside it looks like things are falling apart on us, but on the inside where God is making life new, not a day goes by without his unfolding grace. Man, not a day goes by without his unfolding grace. The second lie: suicide will end the pain. That's a lie. The enemy will whisper, if you'll do this, you won't hurt anymore. If you do this, the pain will be over for everybody. Here's what you need to understand. The pain doesn't end. It simply transfers to other people in your life that care and love about you. It doesn't end. It doesn't end there. Don't believe me? Ask a mom that's lost a child to it. Ask a sister, ask a brother, ask a friend, ask someone that's lost someone. The pain didn't end. It only transferred that pain to other people around them. And I'm going to tell you, it'll do more damage and cause more pain in the ones you love than you could begin to imagine. And the third lie that the enemy tells: nobody cares. Nobody cares. When you're in depression, it can feel that way. Nobody cares. Nobody would care if I didn't show up tomorrow. Nobody would even care. Kelly, Pastor, nobody cares about me. I care. I mean, this is not a message I want to preach, but I care enough about you and the people God has entrusted to me to preach this, talk about this, start a conversation. So I care, and I guarantee there are other people that really care. Now, I'm not saying they know. They always say the best things when you're going through that, because people can say some foolish stuff. But here's what I'm asking. Can we look past the foolish things they're saying and just recognize at least they cared enough to say something? People care. They may not understand it. And I guarantee, I'll tell you, if you've never had a bout with depression, you don't understand what somebody walks through. And that's why you can say, oh, just get over it. Come on. It's a choice. When I hear somebody say that, I'm like, okay, you've never battled with it. Because if it was a choice, we would not be here right now where we're at mentally. If I could just snap my fingers and get out of it, believe me, I would have snapped away. But the enemy wants you to think that you're all alone and that nobody cares and that nobody would even notice if you ended it tomorrow. But that's a lie. Not only do I care, not only do other people, God cares more about you than you can imagine. Romans 5:8. Christ proved God's passionate love for us by dying in our place while we were still lost and ungodly. Look how the message. But God, in his love, God put his love on the line for us by offering his son in sacrificial death while we were of no use whatsoever to him. But God put, let's word that, God put his love on the line for me. As broken as I am, no use to him, he did that anyway because that's how much he loves me. What about John 3:16? For God so loved the world that he gave his only son that no one should perish, right? I love the way the Message paraphrases. This is how much God loved the world. He gave his son, his one and only son. And this is why. So that no one need be destroyed. By believing in him, look at this, anyone can have a whole and lasting life. That's how much God cares for you guys. You don't have to allow this depression to run your life or destroy you. You don't have to allow it to get the best of you. He sent his son so that anyone could have a whole and lasting life because God cares about you. Those are three main lies. Can I give you a truth? Depression, mental health does not have to have the final say in your life. Hear me. It does not have to have the final say in your life. In John 10, Jesus told us the enemy's objective. Remember the first of that? He comes to steal, kill, and destroy. Well, he tells us right after that what he came to do. But I have come to give you everything in abundance, more than you expect. Life in its fullness until you overflow. That's God's agenda for you. See? Here's the fact, guys. Jesus has already defeated, conquered death, hell, and the grave. It is a done deal. And you need to know, when he defeated death, hell, and the grave, he also defeated everything in that lineage of that. That means he defeated depression. He defeated anxiety. He defeated bipolar. He defeated suicide, fear. He defeated those things. Do you remember in the interview with Chester Bennington when he said, in between this skull, this is a bad neighborhood? I was watching that. I felt like God led me to a passage to respond to that quote. This is a bad neighborhood. Check it out, Revelations 21:3-5. I heard a voice thunder from the throne. Look, God has moved in to the neighborhood. This mine, this right here is a bad neighborhood. Nobody should ever be alone. You ever watch those movies where it's a neighborhood and you got one guy that moves into it that runs the neighborhood? You know, he's the bad dude. Oh, y'all don't watch movies? I'm sorry, wrong crowd. He's the gangster of the neighborhood. God has moved into the neighborhood. What he's doing, he said, hey, you thought you run this neighborhood? It's mine now. It's mine now. Pack your stuff and get out. I love it. He said, God has moved into the neighborhood, making his home with men and women. They're his people. He's their God. He'll wipe every tear from their eyes. Death is gone for good. Tears gone. Crying gone. Pain gone. All the first order of things gone. The enthroned continued. Look, I am making everything new. Look, I'm taking worry. I'm taking depression. I'm taking fear. I'm taking those suicidal thoughts. I'm making everything new. Then he says, write it all down. Each word is dependable and it's accurate. There are people here. You're struggling. I don't know if it's biological. I don't know if it's situational. I don't know what the relational. I don't know circumstantial, or if it's spiritual. But here's the thing. When you're in that place, you don't care what the cause of it is. You just want relief. Stand with me across this room.